This is also the explanation the pashtus, literally. Yitzias Mitzrayim every day is the idea of Krishma, reading the Shema. What connection is there between Kriyas Krishma and Yitzias Mitzrayim? That by Krishma we say that a person should love Hashem with his heart and his soul and his utmost. The Aveda of V'chol Meidecha, the Aveda of the utmost, Hareyu Ha'inyan the Yitzias Mitzrayim, Kinal V'gam B'Pashtus. As mentioned earlier, and V'gam B'Pashtus, also literally understood in a very simple way. Harei Shebishah She'im Havaya Echad. When a person says Havaya Echad, he says the Eibishter is one. V'achakach, which means that there is no other creation, there is nothing besides Hashem. So this brings him to realization that he is not an entity for himself, and therefore he wants to connect to the original source. Is v'achakach v'chol nafshecha harei hakavona bazeh u'inyan hamesiras nefesh shemeser asatz mitzvah Eibishter, gives himself over, devotes himself, dedicates himself, commits himself to Hashem. V'lachein Krishma u'inyan Yitzias Mitzrayim. Krishma is the idea of Yitzias Mitzrayim, ki yu'aveda de mesiras nefesh metzia mekola medidas v'agbolas. The level of self-sacrifice, that a person gives himself over completely to Hashem. It is something that takes him out from all these limitations, which is the idea of Yitzias Mitzrayim, which Mitzrayim means limitation, which means in a personal experience that a Yid every day experiences Yitzias Mitzrayim in the morning and in the evening, in the reading of the Shema in the morning, and Pamayim the whole Yom and in the evening. Is Val Yedezeh, the Rebbe introduces it now and connects it with a pasuk in Tilim, in the Psalms, in chapter 73, which corresponds to the age that the Rebbe entered in 1974. Which when a person becomes, for example, 13 years old, he says the chapter in Psalms which is chapter 14, person becomes 73, he says, when a person becomes 72, he says that it begins saying the chapter 73. So this was on the Rebbe's birthday, the 11th of Nisan, 1974. So the Rebbe says, "Vayedei nifa letzlei ha'inyan the kol she'edi levavi tzur levavi v'chelki elikim leila." That kol she'edi, everything that stands out as a separate entity, ulevavi and my heart, tzur levavi v'chelki elikim leila. The tzur levavi, the inner part of my heart, which is the essence of a person's soul, neshama. V'chelki elikim leila is connected with Hashem. She'eri zu haguf, ze haguf. She'eri goes on the body. It is like extra. It's in the same way that we say it in davening. Azamra lelekai be'edi. The oidi means it's something secondary. Oid, it's something more, additional. This additional is the guf. It's not the essence of the person. Ulevavi zu hanefesh. This goes on the soul. Kepirish Rabbi Avraham ben Ezra, as the Even Ezra says. They stand in a state of nullification, in a state of yearning and cleaving to Hashem. As they stand in an Uizgelust und an Uizgang la'avayah. And an Uizgelust means poshet in a very strong ecstasy, in a tainug, and an Uizgang pouring out and like a flame that rises to its source.
This is Ratzui, right?
This is sure is Ratzui. V'gam kola meloshen tainuk, and kola also means tainuk. Like we say, vaychulu hashamayim. It says that when the 6 days of the creation were over, so it says vaychulu hashamayim v'oretz. So vaychulu means it was completed. Shamayim v'oretz was completed. But in addition to that, also vaychulu means loshen tainuk. There was a tainuk, an ecstasy, a special pleasure that was revealed from Hashem, expressed by Hashem when the whole creation was complete. So kol over here also means tainug, a pleasure. Un farvos is kol she'edi ulevavi. Why is it that everything is pouring out and cleaving to Hashem? Umipnei shetzur levavi v'chelki le'ela. Because while was is ein Herz und was ist die Starking von sein Herz und was ist ein Chelik ba'elam u'elikim. Because what does his heart consist of? And what is the strength of his heart consist of? And what is his share in world consist of? Hu Elikim. He is connected with Hashem. There's no other personal interest here. And therefore, it all pours out and it comes out as a flame actually, connecting to Hashem. As a flame that rises to connect to its source. V'chol zehu be'efim de le'elam, hainu le'maylo mekol shinuyim. It takes place consistently, on a consistent basis, without any changes. As the Tzemach Tzedek explains al Aposi, kolo she'eri ulevavi. The Tzemach Tzedek, the third leader of Chabad, as he explains it in his commentaries on Tilim, in Yayaleid, so he says, what does it mean? Kolo she'eri ulevavi shehiyu aveda b'pchenes yechida shebenefesh. This is the yechida of a person's neshama. A person has 5 different standards in his neshama, namely nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida. Nefesh refers to the practical deeds of the person. Ruach is the emotions. Neshama is the intellect. And chaya and yechida are the 2 levels of the neshama, which are above the body, not enclosed in the body, and especially in the yechida, is connected always with Hashem. It is the light that is always on in a person's neshama, in a person's soul, that even if there's a time of danger, this light alerts a person that he should not forget his connection to Hashem, and brings out at times the emergency button, which is basically the Mesiras Nefesh, that a person needs to sometimes practice, exercise, to prove his connection with Hashem. So this is Yechida Shebenefesh. It's called Yechida because it is connected with Hashem, that is Yochid, that's one and only. Shehiyu Aveda Devahavta Savaya Lekecha V'chol Levavcha V'chol Nafshecha V'chol Meidecha. This is a service of loving Hashem with all your heart and soul and utmost. The Dafke, Kishayeshne Gamo Inyan V'chol Meidecha Oz Dafke Nikroyim Eisen Ritzene Shalmokim. When the person also fulfills the Meidecha means his utmost, then it is referred to fulfilling the Ratzon of Hashem, which this is based on the Talmud, on the Gemara, which the Gemara mentions in the Tractate of Brachas, that the Gemara says that in one parsha it says, in the first parsha of Krishma it says, B'chol Meidecha. The second part of Krishma, it doesn't say B'chol Meidecha. That the first parsha Krishma says to love Hashem with your utmost. The second part of Krishma, the second portion of Krishma, doesn't say to do with your utmost. So the question is, what's the difference? So the Gemara answers, Kan be'esin ritzein shalmakim, Kan be'ein esin ritzein shalmakim. The first part of Krishma is when they are doing the will of Hashem. The second part of Krishma is when they're not fulfilling the will of Hashem. Therefore, the second part of Krishma, it says, Ulovdei b'chol levavchem v'chol nafshechem. It doesn't say me'itchem. It doesn't say your utmost.
Yeah, but you can't say that literally.
So I'm going to explain what Chassidus says. So Chassidus explains that what does it mean, fulfilling the Eibishter's Ratzon? That means that what is the difference between intellect and will? As mentioned in the previous year, the intellect is a part of a person's inward personal character traits. It's within a limitation. It's a limitation which is a characteristic that's called intellect, intelligence. The capability of intellect. The Ratzon, will, is an expression of a person's neshama, which is not an entity for itself. The difference between wanting something or loving something or any other emotional feeling is, when it comes to emotional feelings, ordinary emotional feelings, so it takes time till it fades away. A person has an affection, a certain liking to something, and then eventually, with the time, it fades away. He doesn't like it so much. An hour later, he doesn't have the feeling.